Can most of the people that are at Zaatari be defined legally as refugees, or are they economic migrants, or is it a mix of both?
Well, I mean, they obviously fled a war. And the war in Syria is one of the most brutal conflicts we have been seeing for a while, with 1,000 militia and horrible crimes against humanity being committed. Of course, once they're there, then they're thinking of how do we move on with our lives, and after 5 years being basically kept at limbo without real chances for a proper life. They're thinking about their children, trying to avoid the lost generation we're talking about. And it's, for them, a very important value that they can see that there's progress and movement in their life. So that's why many then decide, not only from the camp, but from the whole Middle East and from many communities in the world, to move on.
Yeah, and is that an important distinction? When you're talking about who's going to be granted asylum in Europe, for example, you have not just Syrian refugees making the journey across the Mediterranean. You have people from Afghanistan. You have a lot of Eritreans that are fleeing forced conscription. How would you categorize those people?
Well, I think certainly we shall and cannot touch the Refugee Convention in the current climate, where people sort of are already doing everything they can to not to follow what the convention is saying about protection of people. However, in fact, we should enlarge it. We must enlarge it, because the reality is that when people do not have access to their human rights, and that means poverty. So let's look at the Convention and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If you don't have access to water, to work, to health, to even leisure is actually a human right. Yeah. So what people do in this case? To become very cynical, we could even say, please buy our guns, start a war, and then you're allowed to come, because then you're becoming a good refugee. And that we need to change. So if the only chance right now to check into another country is either being very rich, that's what we do when we go on holidays or when we decide we'll settle somewhere. We can do it because we got money. But they can't. So we need to find new ways for also poorer people to move on. Let's not forget, most of the people who are on the move are poor, and they're not moving to the rich countries, they're moving to slightly richer areas. They're moving to urban centers. Urbanization is one result of exploitation, climate change, extreme poverty, and so on. That's why we're calling this desperate migration as well, moving to a little better place, because I have absolutely no chance to survive where I am. So we need to really look into those issues. And the good thing is that here in New York, we will have the first summit, I think since the Second World War actually, on the topics of desperate migration and refugees on the 19th of September in the wake of the General Assembly of the UN. So that would be hopefully the moment where we're saying we need the Refugee Convention as it is, but we also need the agreement on the rights of people and how to help people who have no other choice but moving away from the place where they are. If we don't allow this to happen, then we will really have a world which is not only unjust, but it becomes unlivable even for the rich.